Good morning. I'm Kevin Taylor. I'm one of the campus pastors here at Cedar Creek Church. Thank you so much for joining us to worship today. If you have not done so, we want to encourage you to download our app just so you have all the information and links available for anything Cedar Creek that can be with you. And if you are new here, there's a link on the social media platform you're on that says new here. Just click that, give us a little information about you, and we would love to send you a free shirt, just our way of saying thank you so much for worshiping with us. There's a chat feature, again, on the social media platform that you're on. If you have any questions, want to make any comments, we would just love to hear from you. So please engage with that chat feature because there's an online host on all of our platforms. We would love to hear from you. And be sure to check out the links that are available there also. Plenty of links to help you connect. In just a minute, we're going to be joining our senior pastor, Philip Lee, for a life applicable message. But before that, let's get to some worship music.
Good morning, Cedar Creek. Why don't you stand and worship with us? When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an
Amen, and good morning, Cedar Creek. Thank you so much. You can grab a seat. If I've never had the privilege of meeting you, my name's Rick. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at our Banks Mill campus. What an unbelievably beautiful morning to be here. I do apologize that none of you evidently made the cut in the Masters and have a Sunday tea time, so better luck next year. Keep practicing. Maybe you'll get there. We're excited to have you here. We've prayed really hard for this week and believing that God's going to do some incredible things, so thank you for joining the Cedar Creek Church family. And every single week, I just like to come out here and say a special welcome to you if you're new with us. We're so honored to have you be a part of the family this morning, and we'd love to celebrate your being here and help you connect. You're going to hear us talk about next steps here. We'd love to help you take a next step today, even if you're new with us. And the way that we do that is if you're new with us here at our Banks Mill campus, if you'll go by our VIP section on my left, your right, over here at the end of the service, some of our guest services team, as well as some of our volunteers, will be standing by that would just love to shake your hand, answer any questions that you might have, and celebrate your being a part of the family with us this morning. And the same is being true if you're joining us online. Right now on whatever platform you're watching on, a link's being posted. And if you'll take a second just to share some info about yourself, we'd love to celebrate your being here and help you connect in any way that you're seeking to take a next step with us as well. And whether you do that at our VIP or online, we have a gift just to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You'll hear us talk a bunch, and I've already referenced it a few times up here about next steps. And there's always a ton of stuff going on and a ton of opportunities for you to connect more meaningfully with us as a church family. It's easy to get lost in a room this size with this many people, and we want to prevent that. And one of the ways that we do that is through creating something called the CedarCreekChurch app. And so you can download that, Apple, Android, wherever you're at, on any of the app stores, you can download that. It's the best way, kind of one-stop shop for you to get connected and stay connected, to plug into everything that's going on in and around Banks Mill, as well as Cedar Creek Church as a whole. We want you to be connected and know what's going on and be able to use all of the resources that we provide that might help you in your journey back to God. So we're excited about that. We're excited for you to be here this week. We're believing that God's going to do some incredible things this morning. But for now, we're just going to stand together and continue to worship Him. So will you stand with me?
fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. And the same God is never late. It's working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name.
without holding anything back, we thank you for just how powerful you are, how glorious, how worthy of every ounce of honor and praise that we could bring, how worthy of so much more than we can offer, but even still you've decided to look upon our sacrifice that we lay at your feet and call it worthy because of what Christ Jesus was willing to do. Father, I pray that each one of us as believers would look upon the cross and recognize that it's not just something that works for us, but it's an exemplar for us. That it's a symbol, it's what we're supposed to do with our lives too. Lay it down in love. And that's a holy calling, but that doesn't make it any easier. We ask you for help in that. We ask you for guidance in figuring out what that looks like for each of us. But we know that you're worthy. We know that you're faithful to make something so much better out of us when we lay ourselves down. It's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Good morning, Cedar Creek. Thank you so much. If you have your Bible, you can open it. John chapter 15. For those of us who may be joining us on our Ridge campus or online and have no idea who I am, my name's Rick, and I'm the Adult Ministry Director here at our Banks Mill campus. And for the next couple of weeks, this week and next week, I'll have the opportunity to help us continue in our series called Better Now, as our senior pastor, Philip, is away. He is with our outreach team on a medical campaign down in Guatemala, so be praying for them. We'll give you more information about that next week as they're headed back. But I am, in full disclosure, unbelievably excited, okay? But I'm going to need your help, all right? I'm excited to continue this series for a couple of reasons, but I need your help because I recognize something about myself, okay? Most people run at like an energy and passion level that maybe goes from like 1 to 10, if we're just doing like a sliding scale, right? My energy level starts somewhere around a 5, okay? And spends a lot more time, probably closer to a 10 than I would like to go. I go fast in everything. So, now, I have been told when I get excited, sometimes I may talk a little bit quick. My temptation is to tell you to listen faster or write faster, but I'm not going to do that. So here's what we're going to do. Because I recognize that I'm excited about this message and I may need your help. How many of you remember the movie from maybe the mid-90s, Angels in the Outfield? Anybody? Anybody in here remember watching it? Okay, it was a great one. If not, go home and watch it. Good movie. Great show to check out. We're just going to give a symbol. If I get too revved up and going, I'm doing the best that I can to calm myself down. I steer clear of coffee, donuts, all that kind of stuff. You just stand up and give me the Angels in the Outfield signal, just like this, okay? Now, don't do it to distract me because in addition to being passionate, I also struggle with a little bit of ADD. So if you stand up and you're just doing it repetitively, we're never going to get anywhere. And we'll just be here until this afternoon and everybody wants to get home to watch a golf tournament. So we are going to rock and roll through that. But there's a couple of reasons for my heightened excitement to continue this series. One is because I have a passion to push back against a couple of areas of culture. The first is that we live in this instant gratification culture, which means any question that you have or any piece of information that you may be seeking to obtain, you can gather just by taking your phone out of your pocket or by taking out a device and at any point typing it into the World Wide Web, and you can get that information and then just move along. And so you get the info, you move along, and maybe it interacts with you, maybe it doesn't, it just answers the question for you. But one of the things I believe that's created in us as a culture is this tendency to just try to pinball around from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And we never truly sit and pause and think about the moment, the situation, the facts, the circumstances, whatever it may be that we find ourselves in, and then consider how this moment or these things may impact or inform the rest of our life. And I'm so passionate about this series because one of the heartbeats of this series, if you missed last week, this series is called Better Now, is coming out of Easter, taking an extended period of time to look back at the events of the Holy Week, which if you're new to the Bible, what that means is Jesus' entrance into Jerusalem, the end of his perfect life on Good Friday on the cross, and his resurrection that happens on Easter Sunday. And we started from this premise of this is the most important event in the history of humanity. That the events of Holy Week are the most important events in the history of humanity because they are the means by which we date every other event that happens in humanity. That Jesus' death turns the page to a whole new page of humanity's history. But I think even that scratches the surface of what it is supposed to be. And so what we're trying to do over the next several weeks is unpack, really with one of the most important areas of our life, our relationships. What does that event, or those collection of events that we celebrated on Easter Sunday, have to do with the way that we relate to one another in the modern age? And it's interesting to me, this is just one of my passions, that we spend an entire season of the year, some of you starting at the beginning of November, some of you who are respectful remember Thanksgiving, but we spend an entire season of the year celebrating, remembering, worshiping little baby Jesus at Christmas. But interestingly enough, the Bible only actually commands us, and I'm not saying that's bad. I think that's a huge moment in human history as well, that God would become human, that he would leave his seat in heaven to take on human form and begin that journey of a perfect life that would end in a death that would allow for him to substitute for us. That's beautiful, and I think we should remember it. But the Bible only actually commands us to remember Jesus' death and resurrection. Jesus himself, as the Sunday before Easter, we celebrated Palm Sunday, and we took the Lord's Supper and communion together. The entire institution of the Lord's Supper, and the reason that we continue it and that the church has continued it through human history, is because Jesus commands us to do this in remembrance of him, specifically in remembrance of his death, specifically in remembrance of the shedding of his blood that offers atonement for our sins. And so there's just this danger that's created in our culture that we have this moment that we're going, yeah, that is really important. And then we just turn the page and we put away the pastel colors and we get ready for summer and start planning beach vacations, and we never understand or fully try to unpack, what does this mean for me thousands of years removed? So I think that's an important question. That's part of what makes me excited. The second thing that makes me excited is because I believe taking this amount of time to examine relationships swims dramatically up culture of the current that we find ourselves in. And what I mean by that is I looked up some studies this week. We live in a time in human history when it is easier for us to connect than ever before. Right now, our senior pastor is in Guatemala. If we wanted to, we could call him and put him on the screens and all of us do it. He could preach the entire sermon from Guatemala City. At any given point, you can FaceTime anybody that you want to as long as they have internet, and almost all of the world has internet. We have social media platforms that allow you to see pictures, that allow you to celebrate stages of life, that allow you to do almost everything you would want to do on the surface in terms of connecting with one another. And yet, every single study that I read this week said, and the most alarming one said this, children under the age of 18 right now, greater than 75% of them would identify as sometime in the past year experiencing tangible feelings of loneliness in their lives. And of adults over the age of 18, the number becomes 50%. But here's what I've learned in doing ministry and being around adults for a long period of time and being an adult. The number, probably the discrepancy in those two numbers, 75 and 50%, is probably more than likely just because adults are good at covering it up or lying about it. And we never truly interact with it. And so the question becomes, if we are more connected than we've ever been, we have more access to people than we've ever had, we have more access to information than we ever have, why is it not solving this loneliness issue? Why, seemingly the easier it becomes to connect, the less connected we feel. My answer to that, and what I want to spend today unpacking, is the topic of friendship. But my answer to that is because the cultural relationships that we've been presented with, and what most of us accept as the only form of relationship that exists, or the only form of friendship that exists, is at best counterfeit, and at worst unbelievably dangerous for our life and our development. And let me talk to the church for just a second. Believers in the room who belong to this church, this is even more true for you. It's even more true for you. So the question that I want to try to unpack today is simple, but very difficult, and it's, what is friendship? What is friendship, and how do we get there? Because again, the culture's reduced it to the people who give you pediatrician recommendations on Facebook. The people who answer where you should eat when you go out of town. People who answer you with those surface level kind of interactions. That's what friendship looks like. And then this was the interesting thought that I had, what we've done as a culture in this. So if you're not familiar, or maybe you're a little bit younger and you don't really know how social media became social media, here's how I remember the evolution. Now this isn't entirely accurate. Maybe it is. I don't know. Don't email me. It's not the point of the sermon. Don't get mad at me if I leave out your favorite social media network, okay? The first social media I remember showing up was MySpace. Right? Anybody in here have a MySpace? Anybody was on there? Awesome, cool. MySpace's fatal flaw, and I'll argue this to the end of it, was that in MySpace at any given point you had to have a best friend, right? And all that did was set you up for disaster, because everybody who was not your best friend was wondering why they were not your best friend, right? And then Facebook showed up on the scene and drove MySpace out of business. But interestingly enough, and not many people remember this, Facebook, when it started, you could only create a Facebook account with .edu email addresses. It was designed for college students to be able to connect with one another, to get help with class. I don't know what it was designed, what the original intent was. I just know that initially you had to have a college account to get it. And then it went mainstream and everybody jumped on. And it was taken over by young people. Now here's what happened, interestingly enough. Young people flocked to Facebook. Old people got mad about it. Look at these people. All they're doing is looking at their phones. All they're doing is looking at the computer. They don't actually talk to each other. They just type with each other. Now what's happened is the young people have left Facebook behind, and our older people have flocked to Facebook, and now they got a marketplace, and you can share dog photos, and you people are all over it, and we love you for it, okay? Stay there, do it. That's a great thing to do, right? And then from there, all the while we feel this feeling of, okay, this isn't really helping us connect. This isn't really helping us connect. And nobody ever raises their hand and goes, hey, maybe social media isn't the answer. So we leave Facebook behind and we create Twitter, which is now I think called X. Because Facebook is too much. I don't want to see your pictures. I don't want to read your entire thought. But you can give me 140 characters about yourself and I might thumb through it, all right? And so that exists for a while. Now I think on Twitter you can post however many characters you want to. You can write a novel on there if you want to, and somebody can read it about yourself. And then Instagram made the scene, and then things like Snapchat and all of those that have become now the more popular or the more mainstream, especially for the younger culture, made it on the way. And I thought about that evolution. And it's like we've gone deeper and deeper and deeper into this social media thing, and nobody's raised their hand and said, this isn't working. The answer has always been, let's add more filters or make it less transparent or make it a quicker, less painful interaction with people where we can just mindlessly scroll ourselves to sleep at night, never truly connecting with anybody, and we'll sell it as we're the most connected we've ever been because everybody knows what our dog looks like. Because you got 937,000 pictures of your children on the internet, right? And so all of us are like, yeah, we're family. I see them every week on Facebook, on Instagram. And so the culture, instead of recognizing this isn't working, has doubled down and filtered up. Let's make ourselves look better. Let's present ourselves more perfectly. Let's make ourselves look more complete, all the while pushing away from transparency, pushing away from people actually seeing who we are and what is going on in our lives. Jesus is going to speak directly to this, not to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Sorry if that's what you were hoping for. but to what authentic friendship looks like. And the passage that we're going to look at in just a second in John chapter 15 is in a part of the book of John called the Farewell Discourse, where the Apostle John is writing this book, and he's transitioned away from Jesus' ministry. Now that's still going on, and you're going to see that all the way up to Jesus' death on the cross. But what he's really focusing on here is these final couple of years of Jesus' life, where he's beginning to prepare people for the events that we celebrated and are spending this series unpacking, where he's getting them ready for his leaving. He's getting them ready for his dying. So maybe a good way to think about this is like if you've ever been in the room with a loved one who is going to pass away, and they're kind of giving you that final charge, like, hey, here's what I want you to remember. Here's what I want you to do. Don't cry. Here's kind of the instructions for when I'm no longer here and you're doing this on your own. And so that's what's happening here. And so from that, we can recognize, if you want to point to write down, and it's not going to be on the screen, but if you want to jot it down, that Jesus is, in some of his final words, is going to highlight for us the fact that friendships are important. That our relationships are important, but specifically, our friendships are important. And we start in John chapter 15, looking at verse 15. Jesus says, "No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends." And I want you to realize that what Jesus is about to do with this transition, where that comma is there, is that he's about to unpack for them what it looks like to be a friend. What does it mean? Not in entirety, but he's going to open the book for us to begin to look at it. He says, "But I have called you friends." Why? "For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you." Now, there's the same danger that exists in Easter if we just skim over this passage that maybe you've heard before, maybe you haven't. You just read it at surface level and don't realize the unbelievable gravity of the words that Jesus is expressing to the disciples, who most of which are first century Jews. For this group of people, the only people that they would have ever heard referred to as friends of God, friends of Yahweh, who Jesus has already declared, "I am him." The only people who have ever heard themselves called friends of God are people like Abraham and Moses, giants of their faith, unbelievable heroes of their faith, the father of their faith, right? Father Abraham had many sons had. All right, everybody's got that song stuck in your head for the rest of the day. You're welcome. That was free. But these giants of the faith, and so Jesus sits down as he's preparing his disciples for him no longer being here, and he goes, no. This thing that I'm doing, this thing that I'm about to complete, extends the invitation not just to the giants, but to you, to be a friend of God. It's also very important that we note the language that Jesus was using. In the original text, there are three types of friendships during this time frame that Jesus is talking to them. The first is a political friendship. And this would show up, you'll see it in other places in the Bible where people ask, are you a friend of Caesar? Which just means, do you support this country that's occupying you? There's very little weight to this. There's very little buy-in to this. It's just simply, yeah, I'm a friend by association. Like, I believe in the things that they're doing. This may look like I'm a friend of the Democrats. I'm a friend of the Republicans. I'm a friend of America. However you want to word it. I'm a friend of the American allies. However we would want to word it would be similar today in that, yeah, cool, but like at the end of the day, I'm not deeply vested in this. This doesn't define who I am. It's just kind of a surface level relationship, friendship, that allows you to see maybe where I line up with some things. The much more common, and some scholars think most common type of friendship that existed during this culture was called a benefactor-client friendship. And what this was is much more like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And in first century Roman culture, what would happen often is that wealthy people would hitch themselves to the less wealthy people, so that the wealthy people could help them with the common needs, with food, with getting stuff for your house, with all those kind of things. But then when the wealthy people decided that they needed the less wealthy people, they would show up and go, hey, I've helped you with all of that, and now I'm running for political office, or I'm trying to accomplish this thing, or I need people to support this cause, or I need people to help me get this promotion. And those people were assumed that they were going to step in, and that was called a benefactor-client friendship. But the language that Jesus uses here in this conversation with his disciples is that of what the third category of friendship, which is a mutual friendship. It was never a I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It was I enter into this willingly. And Jesus is going to qualify, and we'll come back to this over and over again for the remainder of the time. I let you know everything. That you are fully vested in my life, and I am fully vested in your life. It is a mutual friendship. And I think because we've so much dumbed down and so much made this idea of friendship into a noun instead of a verb, that it's just something, or a verb instead of a noun, it's something that we do. I click this, I try to get a bunch of these, that it becomes, we miss the importance of that. But I was reminded of why this is so important this week. On Monday, we got the opportunity to take my 5-year-old daughter, Piper, over to the Masters for the practice round, right? So we got in there, we ran in. Did I absolutely use the cuteness of my 5-year-old daughter to try to get Tiger Woods to autograph something for me? Yes. Did it work? No, it didn't. So Tiger, if you're in the middle of your round and you're watching this, before you get out of town, I could still use one. I'll ride over there. You can sign something for me. But we're hanging out, and if you've never been to the Masters, when you walk in, the driving range is right there. And right off the side of the driving range where the players kind of get warmed up and stretched up, there's a little area that's kind of gated where parents can stand beside it, but the kids can go in, and it's an autograph area for little kids. And most of the golfers are really good about kind of coming over there as they have time before they start hitting golf balls or whatever. And so Piper's getting a bunch of autographs, right? And so she's, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but this is exhilarating to her. So she's getting some pretty good golfers' autographs. I'm like, hey, yeah, he's really good. And she wants to know, who is this? Who is this? And so I'm telling her who it is. And so Piper makes it to about lunchtime. And then some of her buddies, and I've shared this with you guys before, my daughter's buddies, she's 5. All of her buddies are like 25 to 35 years old. Those are her best friends. It just is what it is, and we're grateful for it. So they came and picked her up and took her, and she had a big day. After she left the Masters too, we stayed until dinner time and then came home. And when we got back home, Piper came inside, and she says, Dad. I'm like, yes. She says, I got more autographs. I'm like, from whom? You haven't been in a golf tournament, nor do I know that you've been somewhere where famous people are. I guess we're in Augusta this week, so it's possible. She said, no, all of my best buddies signed my hat. And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, well, let me see. And so I look at it, and there's a collection of signatures and all this kind of stuff. And then my daughter had just written her best buddies' names on the hat. And one of her best friends, her name is Ash, now has her signature on Piper's hat. Piper's hat is just a Masters hat with this little logo, the Masters logo, on the middle of it. Now, if you know anything about Masters tradition, there's 2 guys that can sign the inside of the Masters logo. That's Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, because they're regarded as 2 of the greatest champions of all time. My daughter's Masters hat now has Ash written on the inside of the Augusta National logo on her hat, right? And she loves it. And so I thought about that, and I was like, man, this is a picture of friendship. And I thought about that being what it was. And so I said, Piper, what made you want to do that? I was like, well, these are my best buddies. These are my best buddies. And I didn't even really know the other guys, but these are my best buddies. And then to round it off, she also wrote her own name on the strap on the back of her hat. It now says Piper. So she's got all these Sharpie things. And here's what I'll tell you, as funny as that story is, what's unbelievably meaningful to me about those relationships is that Tommy Fleetwood and all of the guys that signed the hat for Piper, who are professional golfers, mean nothing to her. But for her, the friendship was so important. Her mutual friendships, these friendships that she has with these people, is that she wrote them down there because these are the ones that I want to remember. And here's what I know. If Piper were to come running in here right now and fall, they're the ones she's going to. If she's struggling with something or has questions, they're the ones she's going to ask. Maybe us as well. But that's a picture of friendship. And it's in the innocence of her mind before it gets crowded with all of this stuff that no longer exists. That there's nothing in this world, I promise you, that she is afraid to tell them. That she will let them know all of her life, sometimes more of their life than anyone would ever, because there's no social boundaries. It's just, I'll tell you everything. You get to know all of it. And that's what mutual friendship is. And we've robbed ourselves of that because, again, we've turned it from a noun to a verb. It's just something that we do. It's not something that we are. Why? Why do we struggle so much with true friendship? The first is, I think we have mistaken that intimacy only comes from sexuality. That the only way for me to be intimate with someone, to be connected in a deep, meaningful relationship, that's all that intimate means, is for that to be sexual. When the truth is, Jesus lays out here, why are you here, my friends? Because everything that the Father has told me, I have made known to you. If you unpack in the original language, the Hebrew word for friend and the Hebrew word for secret are unbelievably closely related. Because it's this idea of all that I am, you know. All that I have, every card in my hand, you know about. Everything that I'm carrying, you know about. And we've robbed ourselves of that and just put it on this pedestal over here that hey, that's maybe with my spouse sometimes, but we don't really talk about those things, especially for us men in the room. We just kind of eat these things and we'll battle it out alone. And I think there's two reasons that we struggle in addition to misconstruing intimacy and sexuality, but these two reasons are the flip side of the exact same coin, because the two reasons we struggle with authentic friendship is shame and pride. And the reason that I say they're the flip side of the same coin is because the subject of shame and the subject of pride are always me. Well, I'm not worthy. That's what shame tells us. Who's the subject? Me. Well, look at all that I've done. Look at all that I've accomplished on my own. I don't really need those things. I don't really need that in my life. That's pride, but who's the subject? Me. And so the flip side of the coin is the same exact thing. And I think what begins to happen to us is that we enter into these counterfeit relationships, and then we realize that in our depravity, in our brokenness, and in our need to keep the filter on so that nobody ever sees, we begin to understand that counterfeit is comfy. That I can keep you here. You can see as much as I want you to see. But there's nobody in this world who gets to know it all. There's nobody in this world who gets to see it all. There's nobody in this world who truly gets to experience all that I'm thinking about, all that I am walking through. And for some of us, it's because you don't think you need it. And for others of us, it's because you don't think you're worth somebody knowing. But Jesus' invitation that he starts with here is, again, the radicalness of not only are there people who would love to know you, but the God of the universe already does, and despite your failure says you're welcome. Come here, be a part of the family. He continues, and it gets even better in case you don't believe me yet. In verse 16, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. Again, don't skim over this. This is a great verse if you're looking for one of those mirror kind of verses. You're looking for something to stick on your speedometer or whatever you need to do to help you memorize it. This would be a great verse. John 15:16 is a great verse for you to unpack, because again, we'll skim through these words and not realize how unbelievably radical these are. That Jesus says none of us, the best behaved, the worst behaved, and everybody in between, none of us in this room or in the history of rooms like this, in the history of humanity, has ever chosen Jesus, and that's the reason that Jesus chose them. That Jesus is going to say, I chose you because of my passion for my glory and my affection for my people, and that alone. And what that frees you up to do, and the radicalness of that claim, is for those of you who are prideful, here's what I know. Whether you'll say it or you won't say it, you're tired. Every person that I've ever talked to that believes that the world is held in their hand is exhausted. And specifically, I'm talking to you men, because we'll believe this lie as quick as anybody else with, and we'll hold on to it all the way to the grave, never telling anyone that the reason I'm short with my spouse, the reason that I don't want to spend time with my kids, the reason that I'm exhausted when I get home with work is because my work is an idol, because I am an idol, and because all of this is built on the belief that I hold it all together. And I'm exhausted, and I'm terrified to tell anyone that I'm exhausted. And Jesus says, I know that you're exhausted, and I choose you. Jesus doesn't say, figure out how to make yourself less exhausted and then come. The Bible's clear. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. It's not because I turned or because I came to church, or because I'm grateful that you came here and I'm hopeful that you're exploring and maybe you're going to encounter it. But Jesus' redemption isn't offered to you because you're here. It's offered to you because he came and died. And this sounds harsh, but it's so unbelievably beautiful. It has nothing to do with you. And that's even more radically good news for those of you in this room who struggle with shame. Because you've never entered into a relationship with God, and that's still where we're talking about right now before we even get to relationships with each other. You've never entered into a relationship with God because you've spent your entire life convincing yourself that you're not worthy. And right now you're backpedaling. You're doing backflips in your mind. Rick, you don't know what I've done. You don't know who I am. I've blown it. You don't know about the divorces. You don't know about the abuse. You don't know about the addiction. You don't know about the stuff that I still have going on. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You're exactly right. I do not know anything that you're struggling with. But here's what I'll tell you. Jesus does. And here's where the news is going to get even better. Jesus did when he went to the cross. He knew you were going to struggle before you started struggling. And his solution to your struggling was not your white-knuckled effort to beat it or your shame and ability to hide it and mow over the weeds of your life so that the lawn looks pretty. His solution was to step right into your brokenness, to encounter it and to say, I'll lay down my life so that you can be my friend regardless of what you feel that you're worthy of. The good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ is not predicated on you. He is the author. He is the perfecter. And that buys us freedom to walk away from pride, and it buys us freedom to walk away from shame and walk wholeheartedly into a relationship with him, knowing that we can be fully known and fully loved without any fear. Some of you are exhausted, especially the religious ones in the rooms who are followers of Jesus, because you're doing backflips trying to cover up the sin that you don't think anybody knows about, including Jesus. And the unbelievable news this morning is that Jesus has known about it since before you started hiding it. And Jesus' response to your hiding it is not to ask for the exchange policy on the cross. I need you to understand that. Jesus has never one time seen anyone since his death on the cross sin and go, Jesus, God, can I get my money back on that one? And so the backflips that you're cutting to keep them hiding, to exhaust yourself, to mow over the weeds, to pretend that it's not there, Jesus is going, I already know, and it's why I came. You're exhausting yourself to cover up something that's already paid for. The tomb's already empty. We already celebrated that. And I call you a friend because I chose you, not because you cleaned up and chose me. Jesus is the author. So that's how our friendship with God looks like. But then the question is, what does this mean for us as a believer? If we back up just a couple of chapters into John chapter 13, we find these familiar words. Starting in verse 34 of John 13, Jesus says this, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. The reason that I started this message by demonstrating to you that Jesus believes that friendships are important is this last sentence. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, by the way that you perform, by how many Sundays you go to church in a row, by how much you tithe, by how many answers you get right. People will know that you're my disciple by who you vote for. People will know that you're my disciple by how you behave in this department, by how great your wedding is, by how great your marriage is, by how great your relationships with your kids are. By that, people will know that you're my disciple. No. The freedom purchased through the relationship with God now frees us to love one another. And our love for one another is the way that people will know that we follow Jesus. It has nothing to do with us. And so the slogan, Better Together, that's on our t-shirts, that's on our website, that's on everything Cedar Creek, absolutely speaks to your individual life. But here's the reality we find ourselves in the world that we live in. Onto this canvas of broken, messed up, jacked up, discontent relationships where people are drifting and feel alone and desperate for connection. We step in and tell people, you can be known, you can be loved, and then you can be known and loved by God. But not only that, you can be loved and known by God's people. And here's what I'm telling you. You're going to get hurt. We're not perfect. This is for us as the church. We want you to draw in here into a relationship with the body of believers, not because we think we have it all together and nothing bad is ever going to happen. If I were to ask right now, how many of you have ever been hurt by a church? I don't even want to know how many, or relationships with somebody in a church. I don't even want to think about how many hands would go up in this room. The guarantee is not perfection, but it's in imperfection that we will still continue to love one another. And in that, the world begins to see there's something different about our relationships because our relationships are grounded in our relationship with God. And because Jesus goes, no, I never regret saving you. Here's what that means. You're going to get on my nerves, and I'm going to get on your nerves, and I'm going to talk too fast, and you're going to listen too slow. All of those things are going to happen. And at the end of the day, here's the response. Hey, we can grind this out. We can work through this. We can push each other back in this journey back to God. Because at the end of the day, what's most important about my life is my relationship with Jesus and helping you experience that. So whether you get on my nerves or we agree all the time, we agree on everything or we agree on nothing, we like the music, we hate the music, we like this guy preaching, we want the other guy preaching, whatever it may be, at the end of all of that, the ultimate guiding light is that I'm freely forgiven and loved to freely forgive and love you, imperfectly, broken, messed up, jacked up, all of us, but bumbling and stumbling and pointing people towards glory all along together, not because we have it all together, but because Jesus is the one who initiated the relationship. And by that, people will know that we are his disciples. So my hope and my prayer over the next couple weeks as you're here is that we'll continue to invest in relationships and that we will realize above all that we are better together if the gospel is the thing that brings us together. Will you pray with me? Jesus, this morning, God, I thank you. God, that this is such unbelievably good news. God, that many in this room, myself included, at any given point have a difficult time believing how good this news is. That God, you're not waiting. You didn't wait. That what we celebrated at Easter wasn't the culmination of our efforts and perfect prayers. It was a rescue mission originated by you to save us, to forgive us, to free us from shame, from pride, from things that exhaust us, to pursue you. So Jesus, that's my prayer this morning, first and foremost, with everybody in this room, through the power of your Spirit, become a person who through faith believes in what you've done for us. That we would be a people who walk away from shame and walk away from pride, not just in this moment, but continually. Through relationships with other people, through people helping point out our blind spots. Jesus, my prayer for those in this room who have never been able to believe that is that they will recognize that even their ability to believe isn't in their power. And that right now they can cry out to you, God, give me the strength to believe, and that you're a God who's faithful and mighty to save. Would you save them this morning? And then would you unite all of us in pursuit of your glory, your name, so that the world might not see Cedar Creek Church, but see the God that we worship through the way that we love one another in highs and lows, in brokenness and in the goodness. It's in your name we pray. Amen. In just a minute, the worship team is going to close us out with just a little bit more worship. But we always want to end with a next step. You know, one of the things that Jesus quantified as making a friend was, I've made known. And so I want to press that on you, and there's not really a great way for me to measure this. I'm going to give you a couple of specific next steps, but here's what I want to ask you to do, and I know that this is horrifying to some of you, but there's freedom in who Jesus is to walk through that horror. Who's someone or someones in your life who you can invite in, who you can fully know and fully be known by. There's no facade, there's no image, there's no filter on the picture. Here's where I am, here's what I struggle with, here's what I'm battling with, here's what's going really well, here's what I want to celebrate. And then do that together. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. We do it all the time in home group. It's the reason that we do them. Because we're not created to do any of this alone. We were created for friendship, created for a relationship. So you can pull the Cedar Creek Church app out. You can see all of our home groups, get information about them, or you can just help me find a home group and I'll call you this week and we'll make that happen. You can sign up for a volunteer team on the app. Connect with people. This room's huge. It's hard to know faces in here. But you can walk in any area. We got opens in every area. And get to know a few individual people that you can be in relationship with, that you can start to walk that out with and experience that joy. Whatever that next step is, I hope that you will take it. For some of you, it's just simply to get involved in the mission and vision through giving. There's baskets on the way out. You can do that through the app, through the website, through scanning the QR code that'll show up on the screen right now. If you're a guest with us, just a reminder that we don't want that to be your next step. We're you're just being here is gift enough for us. But maybe the first step in becoming a part of something is through giving. And that's a good way for you to take that first step. Whatever it is, we prayerfully ask that you would consider doing it. And that God would grant you the courage to do it. But this morning, we're going to close our time together in worship. So will you stand with me as we sing together?
God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you next week.